Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's recorded lecture on the mind body connection. This is Professor Kelsey Brown, the director of the Health and Wellness Coaching Certificate Program at San Diego Mesa College, and I'm here today to pop in with a recorded guest lecture on the mind body connection. Let's dive in. Our objectives for today are to look at the historical perspectives on the mind body connection. Where did things start as far as recorded recent history goes in different philosophies and worldviews on the mind body connection? Moving to where are we now looking at modern science as far as it looks at, explores, and understands the mind body connection. We're going to look at the bidirectional relationship between the mind and the body. How do our thoughts, feelings, and emotions impact our physical body? And how does our physical body impact our thoughts, feelings, and emotions? And lastly, we will look at a brief list of common mind body tools that you might explore using with your clients. This is certainly not an exhaustive list. There are many, many tools available, but we'll look at some of the common and research backed tools available to you. Now, we're covering this important topic because the mind body connection is an area that's been highlighted by the NBHWC to include in their updated 2026 exam content outline. So, in doing so, the NBHWC is saying this is an important area that health coaches should be familiar with when working with and serving their coaching clients. Taking a look first at some historical perspectives on the mind body connection. First, looking at ancient Greek philosophy with philosophers like Plato and Aristotle and their views on the mind and body. Plato's thoughts looked at the body as a vessel for the eternal soul. So, this view meant that the soul was the real substance, the real crux of things, and our body was just sort of a physical, temporary vessel to house this eternal soul. So, this is sort of placing more of an emphasis on the mind than the body itself. Aristotle thought that the seat of physical consciousness lies in the mind, where the mind and body coexist. So, this was a take that looked at the mind and body as more interconnected. And then we can look more to the East at traditional Chinese medicine and the concept of qi. Qi is sort of known as a vital life force or life energy that flows through all living things. And this is explored when looking at physical ailments in the body and looking at how to make improvements. So, this is definitely looking more at sort of the mind or the spirit or the life force that flows within and throughout all living things that then makes manifest in the physical body. So you could see that this was still a big topic hundreds and even thousands of years ago, and we've continued to explore it since. In the 17th century, Rene Descartes' famous term is I think, therefore I am. And this brought forth the concept of Cartesian dualism. So, this is a dualistic approach to the mind and body, making them more separate than in something like traditional Chinese medicine or Aristotle's belief of the mind and body. This is suggesting that I have a being, a consciousness, because I am a thinking being. It separates the mind and the body. And because I think and I am aware and I have consciousness, therefore I have existence, I have life, I have substance. This separates the mind and body. Like I said, it creates this Cartesian dualism, which is an approach that persisted for hundreds of years, really looking at the mind as separate than the body and them having total different physical, physiological processes. And this paved the way for a real focus, especially in modern Western science on and medicine, on the physical body. And the positives to this were that it paved way for massive scientific progress in terms of medicine, surgery. Think things like the germ theory and antibiotics and hand washing, looking at all these potential physical etiologies or underlying causes for conditions. But it really sent to the background any sort of rigorous or scientific inquiry into humans' emotional and spiritual lives and how those might make manifest in our physical being. And now, when we come to modern science, and we'll look at some of the research today behind why this is so, modern science says that the mind and the body are connected, that there's a bidirectional relationship between the two, meaning that the mind affects the body and the body affects the mind and vice versa. And we actually now have many, many studies to show that this does occur. In some ways, we can show how this occurs. And in some ways, we still don't know. So we'll explore this a little bit today. Most modern Western medicine in the United States and other industrialized countries still emphasizes the physical body, and often it even separates it out into pieces and parts. So if you have a kidney disease, you go and see a nephrologist. And if there's something going on with your skin, you see a dermatologist. And if you're not feeling too well mentally, you might see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. So even though we have this greater understanding that the mind and body are connected and that they do influence one another, most medicine, not all, but much of modern medicine still focuses on the physical body. That's neither bad nor good. It's just what is. And so, with the exploration today, we will have ways, or at least ways to explore, of how we can incorporate looking at both the physical and the mental or the psychological, emotional, or spiritual selves into our work with clients. Now, let's explore the mind body connection a little bit here. The basic premise of the mind body connection is that these two things are intertwined. And some theories even suggest that there's really nothing disparate about them. There's no disconnection. The mind is the body and the body is the mind. And there are certainly ways that we could look at and consider that to be true. But the main premise here is that our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our physical sensations impact our actual physical function and our health or disease states that we may experience. And vice versa, our physical behaviors, things like our exercise, our eating habits, our sleep, and social and substance use habits all impact our emotions and psychological state as well. And there's even a branch of medicine that looks at this now and science called psychoneuroimmunology. And this looks at the interplay between psychology, neurology, and immunology. So looking at our thoughts, our brain, our nervous system, how our neurons are actually firing, and our immune system, how our thoughts and our nervous system impact the functioning of our immune system. So, this branch of medicine looks to combine the psychological and physical factors and how they interplay or interact one another through their shared chemical language of things like hormones and neurotransmitters. So these things might be secreted from certain endocrine organs or transmitted in the brain, and then they actually have psychological and immunological implications. So it's pretty neat to know that there's a whole branch of medicine that looks at this now. Now, looking to the picture on the left, you see a lot of bodies with colors in them. Some of them might look a little bit like Spider-Man. I've had students say sadness looks like Spider-Man. This is a map of bodily emotions from research done in 2013, compiling data that looked at different individuals and their emotional states across multiple different countries, both in the West and in the East. So this wasn't just one demographic or one area of the world. And what they did was they showed people a blank map of the body and then this color scale where those warmer colors, the oranges and the yellow, correspond to increases in physical sensation, and the lighter colors, the blues and the light blues, correspond to decreases in physical sensation. And then they showed people movies, they played them videos, they explained emotions, and they asked them, show me where this feeling shows up in your body. And what I think is so amazing about this research is that from all of the different places they studied and all of the people that they studied, again, looking in both Western Europe and East Asia, they found that people's mapped experiences of physical emotions were the same. And that's what you're looking at here is the aggregate of folks' responses to this, seeing the increase in color and for things like happiness, meaning the increase in feeling and sensation in areas like the chest, the palms, the face. You can see the decrease in color in the arms and legs and this heavy increase in color in the chest and feelings like sadness. Depression is this huge absence of color. Love is this big increase in sensation in maybe the abdomen, the chest, the face. So what we're seeing is that folks are experiencing physical sensations that correspond to their emotions throughout the world in multiple cultures, highlighting that mind and body connection, showing us there's actual physiological changes happening that underlie our emotional experience. Pretty neat, huh? Now, let's look at some examples of the mind body connection in action. First, we can consider our fight or flight stress response. That's sort of its common term. You might have also heard of it as the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn response. But essentially, what this is our reaction to potential stressors. Now, an important thing to know is that the body cannot differentiate stressors, meaning that if you have a big exam coming up, you get in a fight with your partner, you're in an accident on the freeway, or you're being chased by a saber-toothed tiger, your body does not know the difference, only that there is some threat to your survival. So you may respond by fighting, fleeing, running away, fawning, trying to appease or gain approval, or freezing. Think of what a bunny might do when you're walking down a path and it sees you and it freezes. Now, these are physical responses to the internal stress response. And the stress response is a cascade of physiological changes inside the body that are responses to an emotional understanding of stress. So you perceive stress, you'll have a cascade of physiological changes. Your heart rate, blood pressure, body temperature will go up. Blood will divert away from your central organs to your arms and legs so you can fight or flee, run away. You will have a decrease in digestive secretions and a decrease in gut motility. If stress continues and is chronic, all of your long term projects will be put on hold. So that means reproduction, repair, growth, etc. These are all physical changes in the body, but you can feel them psychologically as well. You're wired, you're focused, your brain capacity increases. You're thinking you will have increased ability to run, to lift, to respond physically to whatever the stressor is. So, this is an example of either a physical, psychological, chemical stressor. It can be any of them. And this mind body stress response governed by our sympathetic nervous system. This is a branch of our nervous system that is responsible for a fight and flight response. Another example of the mind body connection is the rest and digest response, which is part of our parasympathetic nervous system. This is sort of the opposing side to our sympathetic nervous system. This is the calm, there's no stress, major stressors or threats happening, and we can focus on our long term projects in our body. We have a lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, better heart rate variability. Our body temperature goes down. Our blood can flow back to our digestive system so we can digest. Our body can emphasize and focus on long term projects like our immune system, our reproductive system, growth and repair, etc. And the vagus nerve, which is one of our cranial nerves, runs from the brain down into the abdomen, and it is responsible for stimulating that rest and digest parasympathetic response. So the neat thing is that when you are not under stress and you're calm, you're relaxed, you tend naturally to be in this parasympathetic rest and digest response. However, there are also intentional ways via stimulation of the vagus nerve that you can activate a parasympathetic response. This is the scientific underpinning behind techniques like deep breathing. That activates the vagus nerve. Certain pressure points in the ears activate the vagus nerve. Cold water exposure to the face, humming or singing activate the vagus nerve. So, this is the reason why some of these activities may help you calm down and move out of that sympathetic state. Another amazing area of exploration in the mind body connection is how our thoughts and beliefs impact our actual physical health outcomes. Let's look at a few of them here. All of these studies are done by Dr. Aaliyah Crum out of her mind body lab at Stanford University. And her main area of research is looking at things like the placebo effect and how our thoughts and beliefs shape our physical function. So I'm going to give you just a few details about each of these groundbreaking, to me at least, studies. The first one is the hotel housekeeper study done in 2007. This study looked at 84 female hotel housekeepers across 7 different hotels. And what they found initially is that many of these housekeepers felt that they didn't have time for regular physical activity and they reported their regular physical activity levels as low. And then they split these housekeepers up into different groups. One group they told, you know what? The work that you're doing as a hotel attendant is actually physical activity. You're lifting, sweeping, carrying, bending, etc. And the work that you're doing throughout the week actually meets the Surgeon General's guideline for regular physical activity. And then the other group, they told them nothing. They said, carry on with your work. And they did not give them any information on how the work that they were doing was actual physical activity. They followed them for 4 weeks, and 4 weeks later, the women in both groups reported no change in physical activity levels outside of work. So nobody was doing more exercise outside of work that they reported. However, the folks in the intervention arm, in the group that was told, hey, guess what? Your work is physical activity. They lost weight, lost body fat percentage, had improvements in their waist to hip ratio, and their blood pressure dropped. So just the knowledge, the belief that the work they're doing was exercise changed their physical health outcomes. Another one, the milkshake study, 2011. In the milkshake study, they brought individuals in, 46 individuals, on 2 different occasions. So all individuals in the study had 2 different milkshakes at 2 different times, and they were randomized in different orders. Now, they were told that the first milkshake was a 140 calorie, quote, sensible shake. So this was supposed to be like a diet, light and fit shake. On the other occasion, they told them that this was a 620 calorie indulgent shake. So we're thinking more of a milkshake here. And what they did was they measured these individuals' blood at baseline, 20 minutes, and 60 minutes in. And the kicker here is that both milkshakes were exactly the same. They both had 380 calories in actuality, when in one occasion they were told it was a 140 calorie light shake, and on the other they were told it was a 620 calorie indulgent shake. And what did they find in their blood work? They found that in the case where they had the 620 calorie indulgent shake, they think they're getting a lot of calories, a lot of food here, that their self-reported hunger levels decreased. So they said, yeah, you know what? I'm not as hungry after having this. And their blood measured ghrelin levels dropped significantly. They had a big, steep drop down, just as you would expect after a 600 calorie shaker meal. Ghrelin is a hormone that is responsible for feelings of hunger. So this is what we'd expect to see. Okay, cool. They had a milkshake and the blood markers of their hunger and their self-reported hunger went down. Here's the wild part. When they were told that they had a 140 calorie sensible shake, their ghrelin remained almost flat. It did not drop hardly at all, and their self-reported hunger did not drop nearly at all either, despite the fact that both of these milkshakes actually had the same number of calories. So it was their mindset, their belief about what they were eating or drinking in this case, that actually impacted their perceived feelings of hunger and their blood markers of hunger as well. That study just absolutely blows my mind. And there are a lot of implications there then with how we could talk about food with our clients, rather than them having them think of healthy eating as depravatory or limited or light. Having them find foods that are nourishing and fulfilling and feel good might actually make them feel fuller when they finish. And lastly, a culmination of some studies on our mindset and stress in 2013 looked at stress mindsets, and it compared the mindset of stress as debilitating, where folks think, boy, when I'm stressed, it just breaks me down physically, mentally, emotionally, versus stress as enhancing, where folks think, gosh, stress is tough, but it helps motivate me, inspire me, prepare my body to respond to the challenge and the stressor as stress is really designed to do, they looked at the differences in these. First, they showed that through educational videos and readings that our mindset around stress can actually shift. That's good news. They also showed that those who have a stress as enhancing mindset have a lower cortisol response to stressors and improved behavioral outcomes in response to stress. So again, just how we think about stress can impact its physiological and behavioral effectiveness. So, all of this highlights the inherent ways that our mind and our body are inextricably connected. One impacts the other. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings impact our behaviors and our biological outcomes. Now, a couple more things looking at the healing potential of the mind. Some of these areas I've explored deeply myself in my own personal history with some experiences of chronic pain. And I want to highlight a few of them there. One of them is pain reprocessing therapy. Pain reprocessing therapy is a modern pain management tool. Chronic pain is one of the biggest disease burdens in the United States and throughout the world. Chronic pain impacts more people in the United States that annually than cardiovascular disease, cancer, and diabetes combined. And there are some methods for managing chronic pain, but not all of them are effective. And if you've ever experienced chronic pain, you know it can be debilitating, depressing, anxiety invoking. So, there are some pioneers looking at this concept known as pain reprocessing therapy. And the idea here is that in chronic pain, pain that lasts for 6 months or more, or three to 6 months or more, when there's no known underlying cause, meaning that there's no known uh, rupture, tear, no one's torn a labrum, a disc, etc. There's no broken bone, there's no mass, there's some pain, and we don't know what's causing it. Think of just sort of like chronic low back pain, that they're terming this as a neural pathway disorder, meaning that all pain is created in the brain, regardless of whether there's a real physical cause of it. Like, let's say you broke a bone in your wrist and you experienced pain. The pain is still being generated in your brain despite the broken bone in your wrist. Now, let's say you broke a bone in your wrist, but you are in a major accident and you're trying to help save the life of someone else in the accident. While you're working on those life saving efforts, you're not likely to be experiencing much of the pain in your wrist because your brain is going, not as important as these other life saving measures. So, this pain reprocessing therapy teaches individuals about the brain's production of pain and how neural pathways can sort of become funky and faulty in chronic pain. Maybe there was an initial pain stressor, and then your brain starts to groove these neural pathways with the saying neurons that fire together wire together. So, meaning, let's say you bend down to pick up a pen and your back starts hurting. Now, every time you bend down, your brain might go, oh, this causes my back pain, and you might have some pain. There's a study that used neural reprocessing therapy for chronic idiopathic, meaning no known cause low back pain. And they found that 98% of individuals had pain improvement, and 66% of people, 2/3, were completely pain free at the end of the study, and that these outcomes persisted for up to a year. This is absolutely remarkable pain outcome results. And I have the links to these studies in the notes at the end of this if you want to explore this further. There's additional research looking at sham surgeries where they will do studies where they put individuals under anesthesia. Some of them get the real surgery, like a back surgery. Some of them actually don't get any surgery at all. And their outcomes in terms of pain reduction are very similar in many cases. And many of you have probably heard of the placebo effect, whereby an individual thinks that they're taking a pill or engaging in some sort of therapy, and they find that they get improvements regardless of whether or not they um, take in the actual active substance. So these, again, are all just ways to show the mind and body connection. So much is happening in our brain, in our nervous system, in our emotional understanding of an experience that impacts our physical manifestation or felt sense of the experience. I also want to be clear that this is not at all to suggest that the mind can cure everything. There is absolutely a place for modern medicine, for physical intervention. So, this is not to say surgeries are a waste or medicine is a waste. That's not the case. Surgeries, medicines save lives, improve lives throughout the world. This is just to say that the mind plays a role. So let's look now at various mind body techniques that you might explore and look into with your clients. Many of you are probably familiar with traditional mind body practices like mindfulness, being aware of your present moment experience without judgment, whether that be the sounds, sights, smells, or physical sensations you feel, or something like a body scan. Various meditation practices or breath work. My personal favorite breathing technique is the 4-7-8 breath by Dr. Andrew Weil out of the University of Arizona. You can do a quick Google for the 4-7-8 breath and follow a guided practice of it. It's an inhale through the nose for 4, hold for 7, exhale forcefully through the mouth for 8, for 4 to 8 rounds. And then there are practices, mind body movement practices like yoga, Tai Chi, and Qigong. Also, we can look at expression and connection practices. It's not just sitting cross legged on a mountain meditating that can improve the mind body connection or yield physical improvements through mental techniques or vice versa. We can look at things like music, dance, art, journaling and writing. So, expressive therapies, writing out your feelings, writing to another, therapy or support groups, and just good old social connection. There's an abundance of research suggesting that strong social ties are hugely protective against all cause mortality and increase both lifespan and health span. These are mind body techniques too. They impact the mind, which improves physical outcomes and vice versa. And then we can also think of our strong lifestyle pillars, our physical activity, eating a nutrient dense anti inflammatory diet. So, one that has lots of fruits, vegetables, minimally processed foods, consistent high quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night, exposure to outdoors, etc. These things will impact our physical body, our hormones, our neurotransmitters, etc., in a way that impacts our mind, our mental or psychological state. This is the Healthy Mind Platter from Dr. Dan Siegel out of UCLA. And he is a researcher and author who looks at mindfulness, parenting. Interestingly, he's got some fantastic parenting books. And he has this Healthy Mind Platter that looks at what are some of the basic things that individuals need to do in a day to feel well. And these, you can see by looking at them, are both mental and physical in nature. So, sleep time, physical time, that means some time for movement. Focused time, that means some time for deep work, flow, exploration. Connection and social time. Play, spontaneity, joy. Downtime, meaning some time to rest and recover. And time in, meaning some time alone for introspection, for solitude, whether it's writing, journaling, praying, meditating, just silence, etc. And these don't all have to be big. They don't have to be long, minus the sleep one. Just a couple minutes of these a day can make a difference in mental and physical health. This brief video here is on the stress cycle and how to complete it. I will let you come back to this lecture and watch it on your own rather than playing it live in the recorded lecture because sometimes the audio is funky. Looks at the mind body techniques for completing the stress cycle. Again, looking at how our mental thoughts or physical actions can impact our emotional and physical experience of stress. So they include things like tensing all your muscles as hard as you can for 10 seconds and releasing them, running or physical activity, a 20-second hug with a close supported other. There's some awesome ideas that you could think about using on your own or incorporating with clients. So to summarize, the mind body connection has been a topic of conversation, inquiry, and debate throughout time. Historical philosophies have varied, either seeing the mind and body as connected or seeing them as totally disparate, thinking of Cartesian dualism and how that has shaped modern medicine to focus on the body as individual pieces of disconnected units without a major focus on the mind. But modern science now recognizes that the brain and body are interconnected and communicate at least through hormones and neurotransmitters and influence one another. The things we think, believe, and feel impact our biological functions and our health and well being. And our physical actions or inaction, things like physical activity, healthy eating, sufficient sleep, or lack thereof, also impact our mental or emotional state. And lastly, there are a ton of resources at your disposal, not just the ones listed here. Think about those traditional mind body medicine practices, embodying practices, dance, movement, music, exercise, expression and connection, and lifestyle pillars as ways to support the body and the mind. Check in with your client. See what feels meaningful, impactful, useful, and resonant to them to determine ways that you might incorporate mind and body techniques into your practice.